Hey, this is Fred Ottman, Tugboat Typhoon, the Shockmaster, the B-A-double-D, Big Steel Man. And the card is subject to change. Watch it.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show.
Well, sometimes love feels just right. It feels so real. It feels just like a pile driver. Yeah, a pile driver. That's what I'm talking about.
So me personally, I'm actually a lifer. I don't remember a time that I wasn't watching professional wrestling. Even my mom explains it to me as when I was a small child, you know, I would just stop in front of the TV and just sit and watch, and I'd just be quiet. It just totally zoned in. So I always been a wrestling fan. And as I get older and even learn more about the business, it's like I continue to fall in love with it for different reasons.
It blows my mind. And I'm like tugging on my mom's pants and stuff. And I'm like, Mom. And she's like, yeah, what? And I go, I want to do that. And I'm like pointing at the TV. Well, she looks and she goes, oh, you want to be like Macho Man and wear the cool sunglasses and say, oh, yeah, and do the elbow drop? And I go, no, I want to be the guy throwing snakes at people.
Yeah.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and Never Wrong Nick Bull. Hello, one and all. Welcome to a very special edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Very special, I say, because hey, we're midweek here, but we couldn't turn down this guest. We've been really building this one up and looking forward to this, CZ, and he is my co-host, CZ, the co-champ of the For Frequency's Sake Network. I am Never Wrong Nick Bull. And with respect to you, Booker Man, I'll let you bring on our guest.
So we are about to bring into the studio a former TNA, or Impact, if you will, X-Division Champion, a former Wrestling Revolver Champion. Let's welcome into the studio Jake Crist. Jake, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing lovely. How are you guys?
Doing great. Glad you can make the show, and we'll just tell our listeners and our viewers right now that Jake is on the road. So if he pauses, he's got more important things to do besides answer our question. He's driving.
Break up a little bit. I go in and out. You know why? Because I'm traveling to the gym. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The Macho Man. Yeah.
I didn't know Jake Chris could do a Macho Man, but I'm glad he could.
I don't know. I got a little bit of. I got a good Macho Man every now and again in me, I guess. Especially when I got all this testosterone rolling through my veins. I'm about to lift the gym. I feel great.
Jake is on his way to a workout, which we're glad that he took time for us, his busy schedule, to come on to the Card Subject to Change podcast. And Jake, I'm going to ask you the same question we ask everybody else that comes on. What got you?
No, I do not take steroids.
No! How'd you know? How'd you know that's the question? How'd you know? Actually, the question
totally
is
natural. Yeah.
We are here with completely natural Jake Crist. And Jake, what got you into professional wrestling? Why pro wrestling? What got you hooked?
Man, to be honest, I've been doing a lot of Macho Man, but Macho Man, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and of course, you know, Hulk Hogan, like most people. Those were the three big guys for me when I was growing up and I found professional wrestling in the early 90s. It's around 6 years old or so. I remember looking up at my dad, and because he would rent the VHS tapes for me every weekend that I would go over to his house. So I looked up at him one day after eating a bowl of popcorn with him, and I said, "Dad, I want to be a pro wrestler." And by God, 2 years now. 2 years in July. So yeah, it's not looked back. Those are the three that really got me hooked. And then, like most people, I feel like I've kind of lost interest in wrestling when I was around 11, 12, 13. I got really focused on baseball, and I was trying to make like a thing out of baseball. And then ECW and WCW and, like, of course, WWF, like all that heat was going on. It was awesome between WWF and WCW. So that really hooked me on, back, hook, line, and sinker when the NWO became a thing. And then that's when I found ECW, and RVD changed my life. I actually saw a clip of the Van Terminator, and I remember the hype going into, I think it was like 2000. I remember the hype going into a heat wave that RVD created this new move, and it did not disappoint. It was amazing. And the Van Terminator alone was the reason why I actually pursued professional wrestling.
You answered my next question. I was going to say, was there a polarizing moment? And you answered it with the Van Terminator, but I'll ask you from the earlier days. You're a child of the VHS days, like CZ and I are. Was there a polarizing moment from your youth you remember from those VHS tapes that really sticks out?
The home coliseums. I remember the cobra biting the bicep of Macho.
Yes.
It was so terrifying as a little kid to watch.
Yes,
but
it was.
That's the memory that sticks out the most. And I always loved the Macho Man's colorful tights. I loved his over the top persona. I loved his voice. I loved everything about him. And hands down, Macho Man was my favorite wrestler when I was a kid. And he's probably still the top 3 or 4 today. I love watching his work. Even when he got super sauced out in WCW with Gorgeous George, I thought that was really good stuff too.
Is there talking about Macho Man, is there a favorite match that you could watch just over and over again?
Bro, probably the Ultimate Warrior match in WrestleMania. Was it 6 or 7? I don't
7.
remember.
7.
Yeah.
7.
So
7.
I always liked that match because as a kid I liked the Ultimate Warrior too. But the 3 that I named, Hogan, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and Macho Man, were the 3 that stuck out to me. But I was also an Ultimate Warrior kid too. I liked his colorful personality as well.
Yeah, WWF back in the day, they knew what they were doing, right? They had the 2 biggest stars, and you know Hogan, Warrior. You didn't know who to cheer for, right? You had to pick a side.
You had to, and that was the crazy thing as a kid. It's I picked the Ultimate Warrior. I'll never forget that. It was awesome. But yeah, my wrestling career just kind of picked up and started from there. Once I saw the Van Terminator, I was just straight up that's what I have to do. And then me and a bunch of my friends in school, we would save our lunch money, and we actually built a ring and welding class.
Okay.
We went to a couple independent wrestling shows. It was in the John Bryan Community Center in Yellow Springs, Ohio. It's the town that Dave Chappelle's from. And we were wrestling in the community center, we went to a wrestling show at the community center, and we begged the wrestlers and the promoter, can we please tear your ring down, because we wanted to see how the ring was put together.
Sure.
So they were just yeah, let all these bunch of mark-ass kids take our ring down. Those guys loved it, and they had a night off from taking the ring down, and we took those. We straight up, it was like 10 of us. We built that ring in class. It was awesome.
That sounds fantastic. Jake, let's jump into your wrestling career. You've been at this for over 20 years, kind of all over the map. Ring of Honor, TNA, Pro Wrestling Revolver, just to name a few. Let's just pull the Band-Aid off and talk about your time in TNA and what it was like being the X-Division Champion.
Man, it was a dream come true when I actually beat one of my best friends in the business, Rich Swan. So like, it couldn't have been written better for me, like personally, because like I love Swan to death. We go up and down the roads, especially back in the CZW days. We would travel back and forth from Ohio to Philly, and that's about an 8 or 9 hour car ride. And we would just do voices and like do impressions of workers. It was amazing just to pass the time. We do Stone Cold, we do Macho Man, we do a little bit of Bret Hart. We do a lot of just to pass the time. So like being able to wrestle my really good buddy for the X Division title was it was the icing on the cake for me. But like I remember being in high school when TNA first became a thing, and
Yep.
I remember that big red X on that title, and I was thinking to myself, like, that's the coolest belt I've ever seen. I need to win that title. And fast forward, like, I ended up winning it, which was like pinching myself when I won the title. It was awesome. It was a dream come true. It really was. And to be able to carve my name in the X Division stone is just, I feel honored and privileged and pleased. Like I feel good with my career. Like by no means am I done, because I feel like I'm having the best matches of my life, and I just turned 40, which is crazy. But like I'm having the best matches of my life and the best shape of my career. So like that was awesome. The X Division Championship win was it was phenomenal. But a side little story about that. Like, so I'm coming home, and I wasn't watching what I was eating back then. So me, Madman Fulton, Jessica Havoc, and Sammy. I was driving. Sammy was in the passenger seat. Anytime you travel with Sammy, Sammy's a dipper. He likes to spit his tobacco anywhere he can or whatever. He's just a nasty human being. So we stop at Arby's and we get some roast beef. And I told Sammy, I was like, bro, when I'm driving the cup holders, like on our sodas here, like I'm the one that goes in the front. You're in the back. I'm in the front, so I can just reach down as I'm driving. I can take a drink of whatever beverage that I have. That's just kind of the rule of the road. That's my rule. That's my rule of thumb. So somewhere in the trip from when I just won the X Division title, so like we're coming home from Canada, and we stop as soon as we get in the States. Let's get some Arby's. Get the Arby's. Go like maybe 45 minutes down the road. I'm on the highway 75. I reach down and I take 2 huge gulps of what was supposed to be my soda, but it ended up being Sami Callihan's dip spin.
Oh,
That's how I brought in an X Division title win. Thank you, my good friend Sami Callihan. I fucking swallowed that nasty dip shit, but it was nasty. I pull over and I'm instantly puking. Like I'm puking my guts out. I'm green, like that green faced emoji. You puke. That's exactly what I look like. It was nasty. It was gross.
Oh.
But yeah, that was. I've never told that story ever. So there's a little. It's not all glitz and glamour when you win the championship.
The X Division was so special. I think is so special to TNA. I think it's what set them apart in their early days. I think that's what made me gravitate towards TNA was, hey, they've got this X Division, and people are doing crazy stuff, and it's awesome.
Yeah, dude, Amazing Red, AJ Styles,
yes.
Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe.
Yes.
Bro, all that three-way dance, like, you can't, and to me personally, I can't think of the X Division without Chris Sabin. I mean, Chris Sabin was awesome, too. Like, I think he was probably the MVP of the X Division. If I'd have to pick one, it would be Chris Sabin.
We're talking with Jake Crist, former TNA X Division Championship, talking about his reign and his sips of tobacco, if you will, here on the Card Subject to Change podcast. You talked about the Van Terminator as a polarizing moment early on. What was that first moment in your wrestling career where you went, "Wow, I'm making it as a wrestler"?
Probably when I wrestled my first show at the ECW arena.
Okay.
It was for Ring of Honor, and it was just that was probably the big moment for me because I was a huge ECW fan. I loved ECW, and that, like I said, that was the actual driving point for me to want to pursue this industry. So with that being said, like probably the ECW arena, I was pinching myself and like had a killer match, had Please Come Back chance. It was really, really a good time for me personally and like mentally, just an amazing time in my career. But then it would probably be my first match in Corrigan Hall for BJW. That was a really great feeling as well.
So talk about, you're in the ECW arena. Talk about the atmosphere in such a historic venue. The crowd's got to be hot.
It was amazing. Like and that was during the time. That was probably, I think it was around 2006 Ring of Honor. So I mean, like Ring of Honor was just on fire. The Philly crowds, man, and like that was the thing. It was like, as a professional wrestler, you knew the Philly market was cutthroat. You knew they were vampires. You knew they either wanted to see blood or amazing wrestling. So like that was a big test for me. Like if I could get over in the ECW arena and get Please Come Back chance, because my match in Ring of Honor was do or die. It was literally a do or die, and like that's how Gabe Sapolsky ran it back then. It's like if you're new coming in and you you caught his eye, he would give you a do or die, and it was literally up to you to do or die. And that was a legit gimmick. Like, so if you shit the bed, you didn't come back.
Well, talk about what was that pressure like as starting out as and getting that big shot, and you've got that pressure of a do or die. Like, hey, I mean, it's.
I was 22 years old. I was around somewhere. I was young as hell. So like, pressure to me was just. To me, I've always thought this, and still to this day, pressures create diamonds.
Yep.
You need pressure. You want to be a star in this industry. You need pressure, and like that's what I like to do when I ran Rockstar too. Like I ran Rockstar in Dayton for 6 years. I booked every Wednesday and the first Friday of every month, and I would challenge and I would tell anyone that came through my doors, like, Lex, put some pressure on you. You don't know how to cut a promo? Guess what you're going to do? You're going to open my show with a 16-minute promo. Good luck, kid. And that's what I would do. I would see people copying, the new flavor of the month when it came to independent wrestling, as far as looks, as far as moves and everything. Everybody kind of gets from this guy. So let's do moves. You cookie cutter guys. That was always my big thing. My big sayings is like, pressure creates diamonds. So like, I felt like that was a big pressure moment for me in the ECW arena, and like I always try to recreate that for the people around me.
So you're talking about booking Rockstar. Talk about the difference. You've got pressure in the ring when you're performing. What's the difference between the pressure in the ring versus the pressure as the booker?
The pressure as the booker was to me a lot more pressure than just wrestling. Because wrestling, you just worry, you worry about your match. You kind of worry, like for me, I worry about where I'm at in the card and like so on and so forth. But like, as far as that goes, I was just being the booker and not seeing the crowds grow or see the crowds like start just to stagnant, or like if you had a really good match or a storyline you wanted to do and it didn't really go too well. So like that, those were like the pressure moments for me. But luckily for the 6 years that I did it, it was on a steady. When I took the book, there was around 20 people in the audience, and then I grew it to about 400 people. It was like our last big show at Rockstar. It was awesome.
Sounds like it.
If you could go back and be a booker again, would you do it?
Absolutely, man. I help a little bit with the booking committee and like talent and like agenting for MLW. So
Okay.
I would love to continue to do stuff like that. The office and stuff like that. That's where it's that's at when it comes to longevity in the business. Because like you can't wrestle forever. I've been wrestling for 22 years, so like realistically, I'd love to continue for another 10 years, independently or on a grand stage. But like as far as longevity for me in the business, I want to be an agent. I want to be a booker. I want to be on the creative team because like I have so many ideas that's one thing I miss the most about being a booker. It's just the getting that creative thought and having that creative process. That's what I miss the most.
We're talking with Jay Crist here on the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan, for the fan, powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Thank you so much for joining us. You mentioned MLW there, and I want you to talk about your time in MLW. And I feel like it's a cornucopia of wrestlers. There's so many different wrestlers from so many different backgrounds, maybe a more diverse roster than your bigger places like WWE or AEW. Talk about your time in MLW and just the different people you've worked with, and maybe what you've learned and your time there with MLW.
I've loved every second of it, and I hope it just continues. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I've had tremendous matches for them. I feel like the crowds have grown just by the little time that I've been there. Atlanta was off the chain. Like I got to wrestle center stage the first time in my career. Another like bucket list, to kind of think back of like historic buildings that I've worked in. Center stage in Atlanta was obviously, one of the two when being a WCW kid.
Yes.
Like I said, I mean, NWO, I feel like most fans like really changed my life. You know, too sweet, baby. But yeah, like I feel like MLW is growing each time I go there. Each time I get in the ring, I wrestled Bad Dude Tito's in Atlanta, in Center Stage, and that was a phenomenal match. I've been doing stuff with Brett Ryan Gosling. That's been great. And then the Tom Lawler match I just had in the Opera Cup was fucking phenomenal. Like,
Yes.
I love that match.
Yes.
Love that match. Like, Tom Lawler's like one of my favorite opponents right now. That was just the first time. I hope we get to do it again.
Yeah, run that back any day. Well, gentlemen, we're about 25 minutes in. It's time for us to take a quick pause. We got to pay dues to our sponsors in the network. We'll be back in a couple minutes. We've got plenty more to talk about with Jake Crist, so stay tuned.
Football season may be over, but for frequency's sake, still has you covered for all your sporting needs. Tune in every Sunday when the best professional wrestling podcast around, Cards Subject to Change, gets you caught up on everything inside the ropes. They won't miss a count with weekly analysis and interviews. More into auto racing? We've got a double dose for you on the track. Tune in to Fast Money with Rod Villagomez each week and win some money with the quickest bets in all of sports. Want more insight from Pit Row? Check out the Green, White, and Checkered podcast where they give their insight on everything happening on and off the track. Need your basketball fix? Points in the Paint has you covered with live shows every other week looking at everything in the association. Backed by popular demand, we have the return of The Payoff Pitch, FFSQC's baseball show, covering you on news around the MLB. If you're missing football, don't fret. Mark and Dan still have you covered in the football lounge. Missing Joe Winkle? Probably not, but he's still here talking sports on Educated Ignorance. Football season might be over, but we've still got you covered. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
For frequency's sake is brought to you by Durham Remodeling, serving the Quad City area's remodeling and repair needs since 1973. Clint's Draft House, grab a bite and a pint. 7th Street, Moline. Lopez, New York-style pizza served up by the slice or pie, Davenport. Lifted Energy, energy drinks, coffee, donuts, and more. #GetLifted. Atomic Sports Cards and Collectibles. Sports cards and memorabilia, vintage clothing, hats, pennants, and more. Ryan Allison Tattoo. Step into the vibrant world of tattoos with Ryan Allison. And A Cut Above, offering quality custom woodwork designed specifically around our customers.
Hey everyone, we are checking out at Walmart. We've got ourselves 4 full carts. We got plenty of toys here. We're going to see what our final number is here in a couple of minutes. But we've got a couple of nice folks here checking us out. But hopefully we'll got plenty of stuff for everybody to get everybody a nice, happy Christmas this year.
Football season is just around the corner, and once again, For Fantasy's Sake is running its annual Toys for Tots Fantasy Football Leagues. Don't miss your chance to be crowned the best fantasy football player in the Quad Cities and help raise money for Toys for Tots of the Quad Cities. The For Fantasy's Sake Toys for Tots Bowl is loaded with great prizes and even better local celebrity participants, ranging from professional athletes and news personalities, and even former Iowa Hawkeye fullback, SCW Pro and Pro Wrestling Trailblazer, Steve Manders. To sign up, just visit For Frequency's Sake on Facebook or Twitter and follow the links.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to Cards Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We are joined by Jake Crist, and I believe, Wiz, you had a question for Jake.
I do. Jake, we named the episode the Firestarter because that is who you are. I want to know about how that nickname came into being.
Okay, so during the pandemic, actually, thinking back about this, like, I don't know if I brought this on myself or not. So, like, it could be my fault, like, thinking back. But during the pandemic, like, I was I felt like I was in a decent spot as far as, like, financials goes. So I was wrestling for IWA Mid-South a lot. I was wrestling for Ian Rotten a ton. And I remember being an upstart wrestler in the business, and I remember having those empty promises of like, oh, I'll give you $5-10 of gas money, and then you get to the show. Like most cases for IWA Mid-South, there would be no fans, so there would be zero money coming in. So there was probably 4 or 5 shows where I told him to take my payday and just like divvy it up between the boys and the girls that were there, and just, you know, like make sure they go home with something. So I did that a few times. It was like there was 2 shows towards the end of IWA's run, and Ian was kind of acting really squirrely and really just not like himself, like more carny than usual. And I remember it was like me, Jimmy Jacobs, John Wayne Murdoch. There was a ton of like people on the show in Illinois, and the next day I had a show for Circle 6 in California. So I show up to the show and I do a barbed wire, what was it, a firecracker boards match or some shit like that with John Wayne Murdoch. And he tells everybody, it's like Ian's big thing was he'd have a show, he'd have a meeting before the show, and he'd have a meeting right after the show. And he'd go down the card and he'd pay you, he'd hand you your envelope in front of everybody, and he'd give you your critiques. Oh, Jake Crist, you're the best, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, hey, kid, you need to work on this or that. Sell this way. You know, what we do here in IWA, we hit each other hard. So if you can't hit people hard, you need to get the fuck out the door. Like, that'd be some of the shit that he would say. So he says after the show in Illinois, there was probably maybe 125 people there, but I could just tell that nobody was going to get paid. And that's exactly how he opened up the meeting. Guys, I'm not paying anybody, even you, Jimmy. It's like, this is what happened. He says this sob story about like this U-Haul and shit. And like everybody walks away with like no money. Everybody that was on the show did not get paid. So I go to this hotel, I fly to LA, and I was just like, man, like, didn't really sit right with me. So like Ian booked Zachary Wentz and a bunch of other people for that same building, but it was like a month or two after. I was his champions. I was like his junior heavyweight champion, and I was his world champion. I was going to be there, but like I was still waiting for my pay for this death boards match that I had with Murdoch. And I was already took those crazy bumps and stuff. But long story short, that show ends up falling through. Because like he didn't cancel the building. The building put a Facebook post on that said the wrestling show that was supposed to be here on this date is not happening now. And like we didn't, like I was caught off guard. I was still talking to Zachary Wentz about that show. Like, dude, that show's not happening. He's like, nah, man, Ian, it's happening. I'm like, dude, I just seen the post on the building. It's not happening. So I told Ian, I was like, bro, you owe me $600 from like the show I got canceled and like the already bar or like death boards match that I did for you. Like, I want my $600. And he kind of like kept procrastinating, leading me on for weeks and months, and I straight up told him, like, it was I was like, I'm about to cut a promo on your ass, and I'm gonna get it all edited. Everything's gonna be hitting the internet about 5 o'clock, if you don't give me my $600 that you owe me in my PayPal. I sent him my PayPal, and at 5 o'clock, I was at 4:56. I texted, bro, I don't see no money in my PayPal. I'm about to air this promo. And he goes, please, Jake, just give me more time. I need more time. Misty's in the hospital. Misty's his fiance. Misty's in the hospital. And then he sent me like a different person's arm and like a different name of like the patient stuff. And I was like, dude, you're just trying to fucking work me, bro. You party piece of shit. So like, I burnt his belts in the promo. And that's how the Firestarter kind of started. That video went viral. It got a lot of traction. A lot of the independent wrestlers regrouped and came together and was like, we're not going to work for this piece of shit. This is how we're gonna like kill him off. Like, IWA Mid-South's not going to be anymore. And I've actually had to message like different workers and shit. Was like, you know what Ian did, right? And I had to lay out a bunch of stuff. Like, me and Isaiah are the two advocates on making sure IWA Mid-South never runs again. And like, that's my goal in life, is to make sure Ian is completely not allowed to be back in this business. So like, no one ever gets taken advantage of. No one ever, feels any like weird around him. Like, that's us policing ourselves. And that's how I got rid of IWA Mid-South, was that promo. Like, later on, a couple months after that, after the promo, everything went viral, I was in a show in Michigan. And a ring announcer named Johnny Delicious says, I was going by Born to Die Jake Crist at the time, and he goes, he's born to die, the Firestarter, Jake Crist. And I was like, holy shit, I really like that. So that was just like an organic, name that Johnny gave me in Michigan. Like, when the Michigan fans started giving a guy from Dayton, Ohio love, I knew I was on to something. It's like they started chanting, pay the man, pay the man, pay the man.
That's a great story. Something misfortunate that happened, but you were able to spin it and make a positive, and you get a nickname out of it.
I wanted to make sure nobody had to go through what I had to go through again. It's like, again, we're talking like 20-something years at IWA, 25 years or so at IWA, and like the who's who in this industry. Like, I remember first coming into the wrestling business, and the big thing was along every independent locker room was, if you're nobody in this business unless Ian Rod knows you money. And like that didn't sit right with me back then, and I never really understood it until like he screwed me over, and I was just like, okay, I get it now. I'm going, like, if a veteran would have done that back 20 years ago, I wouldn't have had to deal with this. And that, like, I was paying my bills with the money, with wrestling money. So it was like, I didn't have a regular job. I was straight up just working. I was wrestling for a living. So like, I needed, like, that $600 could have went towards my house payment, could have went towards insurance, could have went towards lights, and I have 2 children that depend on me. So like, that's why Ian got his belts burnt.
Not to change the subject on you, but when we got you on here, I definitely wanted to talk about Wrestling Revolver and your involvement with that. Every time I've watched a Wrestling Revolver show, I enjoy it. I laugh. I have a good time. it looks like you guys are having the time of your lives. Is that the case, or am I being fooled before my eyes? It looks like you guys are just having a great time with it.
Nah, you hit the nail on the head, bro. Wrestling Revolver is the end all be all for me. Like I've been on every Wrestling Revolver show since the launch, except for a few here and there, like some Texas shows and stuff like that. But like the origin of Revolver, like Sami Callihan used to run this show in Bellefontaine, Ohio called American Luchador, and I really feel like that is the origin of Revolver, because he'd pack out armories in a little town like in Indian Lake, it was an awesome thing. But like when Sammy started running Revolver in Iowa, I was like, why Iowa? And then you wrestle in Iowa and you're like, oh, I totally get it. The fans are amazing. Like, my two favorite cities to wrestle in is Dayton and Iowa. Like, Clive, Iowa is a fantastic market to wrestle in. I love it. But we are having the time of our life, and I really feel like Sami Callihan is our Paul Heyman. He's our generation's Paul Heyman. It's like he could get stuff out of you. He can motivate you. His mind for the business alone is it's phenomenal. And like when I ran Rockstar, I was his first match back from NXT. It was a Wednesday in Dayton, and like I was so fortunate and lucky to be able to get Sammy's first independent match, and that was just because we're best friends. Like I drank his dip spit.
Right. You've earned that. You've earned that spot.
You can't get any closer, I don't think. But yeah, like we're having the time of our lives. I believe in Sammy, and everybody in the Wrestling Revolver locker room feels the same.
And I know you carried the torch for Revolver for a handful of months.
6 months
last year.
World champion.
I know this is a downer on the title run, but your match with Alex Shelley that ended the title run was phenomenal. But let me ask you this. Is there a favorite match that you had during your reign as Wrestling Revolver champion?
Absolutely. So I just pulled up in the gym. That's awesome. Great time, boys. So I feel like my title run for that 6 months was legendary, just because every match was different. I didn't have a match. So Matt Cardona was different from Alex Shelley, like, to my favorite match of that whole run was me and Alex Colon, where it was we took the ropes off and there was barbed wire on two sides, 2 ropes of barbed wire and 2 pits of barbed wires in Clive, Iowa. And that was probably my favorite match of the run, because like we both, something about bleeding with a good friend and shaving years off your life for a match, it just kind of puts it above the rest for me. And
Fantastic.
I really feel like every match was different. That's what I loved about the my run. And that's why I try to make it every match different. Like I went out of my way to make sure every moment was special, every match was special. But to me, in my heart of hearts, it's Alex Colon, the barbed wire.
We have a friend of ours chiming in on here. The Nova of Cast. The Cologne match was insane. The weed whacker spot! !
Yeah, Cologne is. I don't think he's all there in the head. Yeah. I wouldn't take that.
Oh man.
Oh.
Well, Jake, we know you've got a yeah. Jake, we know you've got a busy schedule, so I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on and talk with us. Before we get you off the hook, where can people find you if they want to follow you on socials?
Hit me up on IG, X, Facebook. It's all the same at DJ Crist. My handles are the same across the board. Let's make it easy. At DJ Crist. At DJ Crist.
Are there any?
It pops right up at the Jake Crist on Instagram. It pops right up. Boom.
Yeah.
And then lastly here, are there any shows you want to promote that people can see you? Where can we find you in the ring?
MLW. I'm about to make a re-debut for the Clowns. I'm about to do some JCW stuff, so I don't. That's going to be awesome. Wrestling Revolver in Dayton, the 24th of August. So yeah, there's some. There's like this year. I tell people it's kind of been my Taylor Swift year. Like I was trying to take like this year kind of off. I was just doing MLW and Revolver and like important shit that kind of came down the pike for me because like the last 3 years, wrestling in the pandemic kind of burnt me out a little bit because I was just taking anything and everything that would come down the pike, and I would come out like trash bag curtains, and like it just when you're used to productions and like TNA and there's like cameramen following you down a ramp and that red light's on, like you feel special, you feel like somebody. And like I wasn't getting that feeling, except for like Revolver and MLW. So like I wanted to take this year and focus on my body and just like repairing my mind of the business, because this business, like it will wear on you, like physically and mentally. Like mentally, I feel like more than physically, because like I said, I'm 40 years old. I'm at the top of my game. I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life, and I feel like I can go at least another 20 years at this. But like, it's one of those situations where I just don't want to quit. You feel me?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
You mentioned
Jake,
TNA, the cameraman, making you feel special. Thanks for making us feel special tonight and taking time out of your schedule. Dude, this was a blast.
You guys, anytime you guys want, I'll jump on. I love
Absolutely.
it. I love the setup. I love the vibe. I love the name. Card Subject to Change. It was amazing.
Thank you.
We're going to take you up on that, Jake.
Yeah,
we will.
Stories, man. I got a story where I pulled a man out of a burning truck in South Carolina, and then I put it on Twitter, and I got ridiculed and was accused of clout chasing. It was insane. It was crazy. We can get into that time if you want.
You didn't start the fire in that vehicle, did you?
No.
Okay. I had to ask.
It's funny because I start the story with it was a Jake Crist. Anyone that like seen any of my work the last couple of years, I'm always with my boy Bobby. I don't like to call him my manager. He's just, everybody nowadays knows he isn't getting me bookings or anything like that. He's not managing me. He's my ride along buddy. He's my boy Bobby. So it was me, a Bob, and a juggalo grandpa that happens to be a preacher. We were all coming home from PWX in South Carolina, and we saw this blue truck wrapped around a concrete pillar, and it started to catch fire. And there's probably hundreds of cars just passing by, and the guy driving, his name was Dave Ashburn. So I grabbed his steering wheel and I almost made him wreck into the concrete median. And like, according to Bobby, I jumped out before the car stopped moving, and I Dukes a hazard across the hood, and I ran about 50 yards to the screaming woman with her hands in her air saying, "He's in there, he's in there. Oh my God, he's in there." By that time, the whole front end and two sides of his front doors are just engulfed in flames. So like, and it was a, now I'm just going to tell the whole story. Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
It was extended truck. So it had two doors on it, like four doors around it. So she was screaming. I thought like where she was, it was the driver's passenger. It was the driver's backside door where I opened. I thought I was going to see like a car seat or cause I didn't, a bunch of things were going through my mind. I didn't know what I was going to see. And I was like, man, there's no one in there. So then I ran to the front door and I opened that and I just saw a pair of feet just staring at me in my face. And I grabbed him by his ankles and I yank him as hard as I could. It's like his lifeless body hit the ground. And by that time, the Juggalo grandpa, he was there. I said, grab his wrist. And he went to grab his wrist. And I'm telling you, when I grabbed this man's ankles to pull him out, it was like putting your hand on a stove that was turned, like the burner that was turned on. You know those old school burners that were orange? Like it took my handprints off. Like I don't have handprints right now from the reaching in the stove pretty much. It was like it was crazy reaching into these flames. I pull him out. Dave comes up. I said grab his wrist. So we grab his wrist and we pull him up in the safety. And I look behind me and there was like 4 or 5 people just filming it, like not helping. There was hundreds of cars going by. There was the police and paramedics show up a few minutes later. They get the man in the ambulance. They take him off. We start to walk towards our car to go home, and I've like my body hair singed. I smelled burnt hair and flesh. Like I smelled that for months after. Like the guy's dreadlocks were burnt together. It was probably 90% of his body was burnt by the time like I pulled him out. He was just cooking alive in there. And the North Carolina police officer. She was the hottest chick I've ever seen. She had big, bright blue eyes and blonde hair. I think she was the only hottest chick I've ever seen because she called me a hero. But like she goes, "Sir, I need to get a statement." And I go, "Ma'am, like I don't know what happened." She goes, No. Everybody here pointed to you that you said you're the only one that pulled this man and saved this man. Can you tell me what happened?" I said, "Ma'am, I'll be honest. Like, I don't want to get sued." And she's like, "You're not going to get sued. Down here, I don't know where you're from, but down here, we call that a hero." And I was like, that's where I fell in love. I was like, really? I mean, and like, so I gave her my statement, and 6 months later, the Juggalo grandpa, he went to went to college with his old college roommate, became a private investigator. And so he asked him, because the three of us were worried, like, what happened to this guy? Did he live? Did he die? Sure. Like, what's going on? And like, we try to find out, and it was a dead end every time until the private investigator finally told us that he lived. It was awesome.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Jake, I've only talked to you briefly for under this hour, but you tell that story there about pulling the guy out of the vehicle. You tell the story about burning the belts, and I can honestly say it sounds like you're the type of guy that's going to stand up and do the right thing when it's time to do the right thing. And I think that goes a long way.
Man, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Like, a lot of people, I'll be honest, man. A lot of people ask me, when you was running up towards that car, like, what was you thinking? I wasn't thinking. I really
You were
was.
reacting. You were reacting.
At the end of the day, like I just did what, if I was in that situation, what I'd want somebody to do for me. Give me a fighting chance.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate that. I got more stories for days, guys. I can fill hours and hours of your podcast. Just hit me up and let's do it.
We will hold you up to that offer. We will have you back. You're welcome back here anytime, Jake. We have had a blast talking to you over the past hour, man. It's been fun.
Well, that is going to wrap things up for the Card Subject to Change podcast tonight. Podcast by the fans, for the fans. Powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook, Country Financial. We'll be back on Sunday with Hunter Holdcraft in the studio. But until then, you guys have a great rest of your week.